This will be, I think, the first time that we've talked about something that you guys asked me to talk about. I think it was the board members or somebody just yesterday, I think, to talk about Epiphany. And I'll explain what that is, because we don't do things kind of from a religious standpoint per se here. When we talk about Christmas, we don't do kind of a traditional or gratuitous kind of a holiday, nor for Epiphany or Easter or whatever else. So we want to approach it from a deeper level. And in the reading that was just shared, I heard the word that stood out to me was magic. And let me just start with commenting on that, because Epiphany is honoring the magi, the magicians, not magicians as in Copperfield or whatever. Magicians meaning there's a time when people actually were the magic. They didn't perform magic, they were the magic. And even today's magicians can be the magic when they know the wonder in people's eyes, like children, when you're performing for children, doing magic, the wow factor. And even though there's sleight of hand and that sort of thing in modern magic, that's still not the point if you can still access the hearts and souls of the people watching. Especially if in the magician, in the back of their mind, they know what they're doing, meaning reaching into the hearts and souls of the audience. So I think it still retains the original magic. So the magi were magicians. They were magicians. It meant masters. It meant astrologers. Metaphysicians is what the term meant. So we just closed out the holidays, the ones we call Christmas and so on. But as I've talked about many times, there's this progression from Halloween, Thanksgiving up to Christmas, and then the Christmas gifts, and we think it's over, or maybe New Year's. But it's not really over there. At Christmas, we start the 12 holy days and holy nights of Christmas, which are going through a microcosm of the 12 signs of the zodiac, starting with the Virgin, Virgo, on Christmas morning, and then progressing through each sign. And for those 12 days, you're going to set an intention to let the universe work with you, the stars and the energies of the universe, sort of like we're placing an order for the next 12 months. And the universe says, well, let's see how you are for the next 12 days. Just like the Sabbath. Lighten up. Be still on the Sabbath. Not do all the doings and workings. Let one day be for kind of communion, right? Learning like this, like when we come together in the services. Let it be dedicated to God. And there's people who still, I'm just too tired. We have all kinds of reasons and excuses. Tithing or going to a Sunday service is not supposed to be when you're in the mood for it. It's the God day. If you're going to have a mood to not do something, let it be on your day. Any of your days, whether it's your work day or whatever else. Miss a family dinner if you have to, because it's less important than missing communion with God. Nothing is more important than our communion with God. And the world, can exhaust us. And that's where we go for an oasis, to get some reserves. We can't run on our own energy forever. So it's like the Sabbath in a sense. Take a break from it. So the universe is saying, let's see how you handle 12 days of the year. If you can center and set good intention for 12 days, each one being specifically astrologically aligned to the signs, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and so on. If you can get that right, you'll be setting a pattern, like placing an order, you'll be setting a pattern for that relevant month, the respective month. So a lot of us talked about that. If you didn't hear that before, you can go back and listen to it's the Christmas morning service, not the evening one. We reviewed it a little and did other things in the evening one, but in the morning one, we talked about it more at length. So, that's been all over the internet. Even like I noticed, I was told my YouTube videos that we sometimes film here at Unity of Sedona, and sometimes live things that I do on my own, people will watch a few thousand here and there. The one on 12 holy days and nights of Christmas has over 10,000 people that have seen it. So that's been really important to people. So go and check it out. It's not too late. It is in a sense, but in a sense not, because time's an illusion. So set aside your 12 days and go for it. Okay, now, at the end of the 12 days and nights, we can go, okay, so now the holidays are over. No, because now you have Epiphany. And Epiphany traditionally is called an octave holiday, and it's one of the only ones remembered from the old days. An octave holiday means you just had another holiday, in this case Christmas. The octave holiday means now that you just went through your Christmas energies and the solstice and your 12 days and nights of Christmas, the octave holiday is to take it to another level, another octave. So think about this. Why would people ignore celebrating Epiphany? It's an octave holiday. It's like, let's take everything to another level. People are like, no, I don't even remember what Epiphany is. Well, try to remember. Let's get back to living, with spirit as our first love, our first priority. So Epiphany starts, and some people celebrate it for a day or a couple days, but traditionally 7 days. So it started just a couple days ago on the 6th, and it'll go till about the 13th. And there's another name for Epiphany, also kind of lost to history. It's the celebration of manifestations. Now, who would want to miss out on the festival of manifestations? Who would want to miss out on the holiday of manifestation? Well, the human mind starts to go, really? Does that mean we get stuff? Yes, but what we teach here is get the consciousness first and then the stuff. The reason this was called the feast or festival of manifestation is because there's a few key events that the traditions were trying to commemorate. The first one being the birth of Jesus. Now, this is important because we're not going to just talk about a Christian holiday. The birth of Jesus was this amazing event because it anchored in the stories of Viracocha to the South Americans, the Quetzalcoatl of the Central Americans, the Osiris or Horus of the Egyptians. This person, Jesus, or even Krishna in the Far East, this person, Jesus, was saying, this soul says, I'm going to go in and incarnate as all of the mythologies that talked, even the pagans. They're all talking about it, and the Jews, the Messiah. This person says, I'm going to go in and fulfill them all, which is no easy order. It sounds like, oh, cool, I'm going to be the God to all beings. It's not so easy. Because to become, and I'm talking to you and I too, to become something wonderful spiritually, you first have to burn away that which is not spiritual. Oh, can we skip the burn away part and just, No, we can't. When people tried to burn witches in the old days, they were trying to attack their own stuff that they projected onto the witches. The witches were sadly victims of this. But in their consciousness, those witches can see themselves as Christs because each of them was being sacrificed. Because we try to kill what we hate. And the people were killing themselves. The priests were just killing themselves, not the witches. If a witch in the old days, using just the traditional term, if the witch died with resentment, she has to come back and deal with it again. But if she really understands, and she could say to them, forgive them, Father, Son, and Mother Moon, for they know not what they do, then she awakens. Because that's what it takes. The seeing beyond the way people see and the way people think. So these people, these unfortunate beings, were put in a very potentially fortunate situation, just like you and I. So Jesus comes in and he manifests all of this for everybody. Now, that doesn't mean that all of those traditions, pagan Jew and everybody else, has to start becoming Christian, because Christianity is just another religion. Equal to any other religion. It's not better than. God consciousness is the only thing beyond the religious leaders. In other words, there's a Christianity, there's a paganism, there's all these, and they all have their place. They all have their place. Everyone eventually has to learn to embrace all of them. You have to learn to have the tenacity and commitment of a Jew. You have to learn to have the law abiding of the true Islam or Muslim. You have to have the honor of everything that the pagan has. Everybody's got to eventually embrace all the traditions. But there's one tradition that's not so traditional, that's outside of all those religions. And even in Christianity, to accept the being born again concept, love and forgiveness, the compassion of Buddha. All of us have to embrace all the religions. But there's one thing beyond the religion, and that is when you awaken Christ as a consciousness, or the I am presence of God. And that's where we're all going. Even here at Unity of Sedona. In Sedona, people love that we embrace so many traditions, because some people say we embrace all traditions, and they never mean it. They just say that gratuitously, because it sounds good. We really honor all traditions. And then you bring another tradition, they're like, we don't like that here. It's like, it's all a lie. So we don't want to be eclectic just for the sake of being eclectic. We here are embracing all, but also surrendering to the all. Because there's one step, one notch above all the eclectic stuff. So Jesus comes in and he's being born, whether the traditions all accept him or not, that's not important at this point. What I'm saying is it's one example. Somebody came in. So we honor that Christmas moment because it's a manifestation of, that's why they said in the Old Testament, he shall be called Emmanuel, which means God is among us. And that's what Krishna tried to explain. It's a mythology, but he's saying, I am God among you. But instead of the story of Osiris and so on, it's an actual person saying, I'm going to actually try to live this. I'm going to try to do what all your stories told you. The pagans are saying, we have a hero. Every year, the sun starts moving back into this hemisphere to bring us springtime after the symbolic death of winter. Springtime. So here comes our hero, the sun. So they make stories and mythologies about the sun coming back. So he says, I will be the sun. We'll even call me the Son of God. People go, yes, so that means male, that means a child, one and only, and we started screwing up the whole wording of it. He's saying, I am the Son of God, S-U-N, and the S-O-N at the same time. Because the son meaning the child, meaning all of us. So this moment means that this festival that we're in right now, it's a time of manifestation. So concentrate for the next several days on what you'd like to manifest. But don't just get greedy yet. Let's hold on for just a sec. First, let's commemorate. Jesus is manifesting heaven on earth, divinity on earth. Very cool. Then we have the three wise men. And the three wise men are also manifesting something. So they show up with gifts for Jesus. Gold, frankincense, myrrh. That represents human royalty. It represents spiritual royalty. And it represents the what's going to happen to Jesus. Myrrh represents the anointment of the dead. So it's someone that brings us death so that we can be born again. Also, these three parts, these three gifts of the wise men, they represent the gifts of material, the physical, the emotional, and then the mental spiritual. So three gifts that symbolize these key components. And these three wise men, a lot of people don't really understand who they were and what they symbolize, but there's so much more than meets the eye. The wise men, these are also ascended masters. Now, it's years later that it leaks through here and there that those three wise men, some before and some after, became what we call today ascended masters, like Kutumi and so forth. These guys materialized as magi's of Persia and so on to recognize the coming of Jesus. And that's because even ascended masters refer to Jesus as the master of masters. And it sounds like then we're pushing a religion, but we're not. Remember, we're talking about a consciousness, and that's what's important here. It's going to be so beautiful that the day will come when everybody gets what they were looking for, and it's not in competition to somebody else's. Somebody over here honors Buddha, somebody over here Jesus, and someone over here, Moses, and so on and so on. There'll come a day when the Jews get the Messiah they've been waiting for. And the Christians get the Christ that they're waiting for. And everybody ends up getting the thing that they were looking for. And after they get what they thought they were looking for, they'll let go of the names of it, and it won't matter anymore. But at first, it's going to have to look that way. The three wise men not only brought gifts, and it's very, very, very rarely known that they also received gifts. And I won't go into what those gifts were that they received, but it included visions. One of them included a vision of all of Jesus' history and past lives. One of them included what was going to happen in this life, and one saw a vision of what was going to be the future for Christ or Christ consciousness. And that's just to give you an example. So the three wise men are really significant because the baby Jesus appeared to them and they were considered pagans, not the people of Israel. And there's a reason for that. And it's because the pagans were so open to everything rather than extra traditional. But Jesus appears to them, but he still then has to say goodbye and go and serve and teach amongst Judea. Because he's saying, these people are the law keepers. God trusts the Israelites to have maintained the laws throughout the years. Some discipline, which you need to wake up. You need that kind of discipline to be a good Buddhist, for that matter. You can't meditate when your mind's everywhere. So there were all kinds of reasons that he appears, but he says, I'm going to have to go and work with the people of Israel. But I appeared to you to thank you in advance, to the pagans, honoring the metaphysicians and not just the religions of the region. So, that's part of it. And the three wise men are honoring and commemorating this moment where God seems to be manifesting. So now we have manifestation of Jesus, number one, and the gifts of the Magi, number two. All right. Typically in Epiphany, there's the third thing that's recognized or commemorated. And that is the baptism of Jesus at the Jordan River with John the Baptist. And all kinds of people, they'll travel there and they'll see somebody who will go, psst, for $10, I'll tell you where it really happened. None of the people that claim to know where the water baptism took place actually know where it was. Partly because the river isn't exactly where it was 2,000 years ago. Just like any creek and river, they change and so on. And so people start worshiping once where there was water, now there's a rock, and then on and on and on. It gets kind of silly. What matters is that if people go there and have an experience, that's all that matters, not whether that's the exact location. Besides, if Christ is all that, the energy was left in the region. You can just kind of trust that if you're a foot off, it's still okay. And anyway, so this was commemorating the baptism. Why? Was it about the ritual? No. Because at the baptism is when we hear of the Holy Spirit, which is the Divine Mother, descending in a particular form. They call it a white dove. But the Holy Spirit, the Divine Mother, descends upon Jesus at the baptism. And then the fourth thing commemorated in Epiphany is the wine, the feast, the wedding feast, where Jesus turns water to wine. It's not the first miracle Jesus performs in his life, but it is the first one in that region. And so that was a really big deal. That's like his first miracle, a wedding. This is all really cool and symbolic, guys, because this is the feast. This is the week of manifestation. Jesus, like it or don't, you do what you want with that. The gifts of the wise men, excellent. The baptism and the coming of the Holy Spirit, which is just like, watch this, Jesus comes into manifestation and there are gifts from the wise men. Now the Holy Spirit descends into manifestation, commemorating his baptism, and then we have the feast, the wedding feast, where he performs his first miracle. It's a statement of all the miracles that come after it. In other words, if you're born spiritually, which he was when the Divine Mother descends upon him and gives him the gift of the Divine Feminine, when you receive that, you have the skills to perform any and all miracles. So the one miracle of the wine, which is a beautiful thing, way Edgar Casey describes it, I've always loved. The festival is going on and people are like, hey, there's Jesus. We've heard he does amazing things. There's no wine. We think, you wonder, if he can do something and perform a miracle. He's like, back off. And like, no, he's like, back off. Give me some room. And finally he decides, all right, fine. You folks want something here. And he goes before the water, the pitchers of water, and they all turn into wine, which some people, oh, no, those things can't take place. That's because you've lost magic. People that don't believe in miracles have simply lost their belief in magic, and in a real magic, capital M magic. And that's a shame, but that's their thing, So When Jesus goes before the water, Edgar Casey describes it like this. He says, the water blushed when it recognized its master. And that is a very poetic and a very beautiful description, because it's humility. Even the water said, here we are. What would you have us be? Wine, please. And so it is. Just as you hear stories of Moses accomplishing, parting the seas, just as you hear Buddha, when they say he's sitting trying to meditate and it's hot, the trees would bow over his head to shade him. That's what our life is capable of looking like. We've got to bring the magic back. But for that to happen, you don't sit there, like you're trying to rev up and start a motorcycle. Effort, effort, effort to be magical. It's in the heart and soul. It's in the beliefs, and it's in the humility. Not, I know I can create magic. It's if I connect, then magic happens. Magic/miracles happen. So to me, it's a very, very beautiful thing when we see what's really happened. Summarize those 4 things. And a lot of people that celebrate Epiphany historically, they really think of it only as 3 things, but it's 4. The physical birth of Jesus and the physical treasures that he was gifted by the 3 wise men. You got that? Physical. The spiritual birth of Jesus and the spiritual gifts called miracle working. Now we have to ask ourselves, you and I were born physically. What gifts materially did you receive? Oh, not me. I had a terrible family. No, wait. Keep looking. What? And you'll find something. Find something and look for even the deeper symbolism of it. It could be you have a beautiful smile. And it's not that I'm asking you to connect it to the genetics of your family, although some of that might click. I'm asking you to find your magic. I mean, simple things. For example, things I've shared before, so I'm not going to go into, but an example would be I'm born and I'm living my life in my family, in that tradition of that race and that religion and all that. I was given a godmother. But my godmother was very much like an angel to me. I only saw her once in a while, but man, when I saw her, she always whispered wisdom to me, such as, Michael, I know your family is screwed up, and I'm sorry, and there's not a lot I can do because I have to play a certain role with them. I'm your family's, friend, but I'm here if ever you need me. Or just planting some words of comfort and support. Is that making sense? And yes, as a kid, man, I was like, oh God, can she be my mom? And it wasn't the case. But when I'm looking for the gifts of the 3 wise men, she's one of them. Look for the wise men in your life. Someone that had sanity. And sometimes it wasn't, if your family was really messed up, sometimes it was the cop that came to the door to take you away from that family, which sounds hazardous and it sounds terrible memory-wise, but how do you not call that an angel of God being sent to help you? Find someone, even if it's only someone that visited the night of your birth like the wise men. It may not be somebody you saw all the time, but who was the wisdom for you? Who were the wise men? Who brought you your gold, your frankincense, your myrrh, whatever the case may be? And that could be your business savvy or anything else gift-wise to look for it. But do not act like it doesn't exist, or you cannot become the holiday of Epiphany. You cannot become Christed either. Were you born? Yes, I was. Find the wise men. And this part's easy compared to the next. If you can't find the material gifts, it's going to be harder to find the spiritual ones. So this next piece is, when were you baptized? Oh, well, when I was... No, I don't mean historically. When were you spiritually born again? When were you spiritually baptized? When did you say, my old life, meaning, Jesus going through the desert 40 days, 40 nights, when did you say, I'm fasting from my old pattern of relationships? I'm done with my family style. I'm done with genetics. When did you do that? And if you didn't, excellent. You can start today. Today could be your time. It's a good time The weekend's not over yet. Fast for just a few hours. I don't just mean food fast, although that's included. Fast from the garbage. Write it all down. Not just don't eat. Write down what you're ready to don't. Enough of this addiction, enough of this silliness. I still think other people hold my self-worth. And it's okay. You don't want to say, oh, that sounds like negativity. Not looking at it is the only negativity. Looking at it is not negative. You're not being a buzzkill. You're being honest. Because if you can write it down, you're able to say no more. If you're going to pretend it's not happening, you're just going to be held by it still. So do what you want, but we have the option. What can I say goodbye to? Drama. Jobs that I don't really like. Whatever it happens to be. I have a job where I have to drive 2 hours every day to work. Jeez. Man, I'd be praying for ascension. I'm not going to drive 2 hours to get to work. Stop. Unless you love driving. If you're like, man, I love morning and night, 2 hours added to my workday. I think that's great. Write a book about it so you might encourage some other people to enjoy it more. I don't know. All I know is I wouldn't want to do it. So I don't. I do fly because I'm on tour, but I never felt like I hated that. So I embraced it. That's what I do as part of my life, So find what you enjoy and keep going in that direction, but say goodbye. Bid some closures to the other things. Go through the desert of 40 days. You don't even have to do it the way Jesus did it. 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. To the point at the end where the voices inside are saying, man, you should just turn those rocks into bread. Wouldn't it be nice to have a Cinnabon about now, You don't think, and that story is telling us that even someone like Jesus is feeling it, seeing it. Like, damn, I'm paraphrasing, but damn, like, I'm hungry. But he answers it with, food does not fill us. Only the truth of God fills us. And he breathes it in like it's a 6-pack of Cinnabons. He breathes it in, man, like, wow, I'm filled. Now food wouldn't matter. And as soon as he achieves that, then it says the angels come and minister to him. So if you can get through your stuff, you'll get what you're looking for. But if you try to turn the stones into boyfriends, it's not going to work. Or wives or partners or anything else. It's not going to work. Oh, but please, God, if only I had. That's failing the temptation in the desert. Try to make it through life's tests. Try each one of them and collectively. Try to make it through the stuff of life that says, if only I had one more piece of bread, if only I had. Just fast from it and learn to say, nothing, like Buddha said too, nothing of this world can fulfill me. The world offers me nothing. And that's not as negative as it sounds. It's that once you get it, then the stuff of the world comes easily as miracles. Because you understood it. It can now come to you as a natural occurrence rather than as a going after it and pulling it to us. Because all of those things that involve us grasping will disappear, as has been taught by great masters. So, there's this baptism. You and I have to vow towards that. But what comes after the baptism? He has this ability to perform miracles. It's symbolically, put into the wine. Because it means to the people, to that region, I'm now launching into my ability to do anything that's needed. But what's really cool is that he starts, they believe, to a lot of people's tradition, he starts with the wedding feast where he turns water to wine. Strangely, and for some reason a lot of people don't get this, the last miracle on earth is also at a wedding. When you go all the way to the end of Revelation, the last miracle on earth is when there is a wedding between our souls, the bride, and our spirits, the bridegroom. Revelation ends with a wedding. Now, the last few things in Revelation after that are talking about the spiritual gifts that come from that, but it's still the last miracle on earth, wherein the material world disappears and we're wed with our spiritual selves again. So that's what's happening during this Feast of Epiphany. It's this celebration of Epiphany, this holiday of manifestation. What are you ready to manifest? Only I was born and I'm still looking for my gold and frankincense and myrrh, which to some people it's a job, retirement, and a partner, or kids or something. And even if those things are blessings to you, did you have your spiritual birth yet? And I bid you to encourage you to look for the spiritual birth, not just the physical, which we'll do in a little meditation. But look for your spiritual birth. If it hasn't happened, let it be today. Because really, in a nutshell, in its shortest form, it means when you're ready to say, I'm hearing something such as this talk. I'm feeling something such as this morning's meditation, not just here, but at home perhaps. It's when we said goodbye to the earthly life we were born into and welcoming in a spiritual self. Well, still on earth physically, but welcoming in a spiritual self. When we get that, all of a sudden we realize the magic and the miracles are here now. But I don't have to do them. I become them. And now it's so amazing because Hosanna in the highest. All praise to Emmanuel. Who's Emmanuel? You. Because you have said God is with us. God is amongst us. Because you walked in a store and you smiled at somebody that was feeling down. I'm not saying you are the one and only embodiment of God. I'm saying God is amongst us. And people say that about a lot of the work I do as a spiritual teacher. But I'm in the role of a spiritual teacher, so they're going to more easily see that. You guys have even a harder burden because you have to try to make them feel that without standing in front of them and looking, like you're talking about this stuff. You guys have to, and it's not a chore, but I'm saying you have the extra burden of at work being the one that somebody says, God, I'm so glad they were here today, because that means God is amongst us. My job is sometimes it's a challenge of sorts, but it's easier than the folks that have to, without title, fly in under the radar and leave a room, somehow leaving people the impression that God is amongst us. A tall order, I think, for some, like, seriously, me? Yes. In a sense, just be nice. Or as A Course in Miracles puts it, I choose to be truly helpful. Be loving, be forgiving, be a good example. Don't just wear the beads, the mala beads. Don't just honor the holidays of this tradition or that tradition. Don't just say the words. Actually live it. Actually embodying it. God is amongst us. That's what the title meant. It wasn't titled, someone's doing occasional good deeds to get something in return. It was simply, God is amongst us. All right? Let's have a moment, please, of meditation. Set aside all the stuff, even of the talk today, other than absorbing what you heard that might have made sense. Imagine that it's the middle of the night, dark. A moon in the distance, stars in the distance. Middle of the night, and imagine that you were born. No matter what time of the day you were really born, let's pretend you were born in the middle of the night. And then reflect. Be objective. Be clear. born to the world. It doesn't matter if your family and parents loved you, doesn't matter. On the invisible planes, angels attended your birth. That is a fact. Not a hope, it's a fact. So imagine that you're born and you can still see them in that hospital or wherever it was. Not seeing the mundane level so much as something else was there, the magic. And despite who you lived with, who you grew up with, and so on, allow the angels, allow the Divine Mother to help you see your life differently in this. Who were some of the wise men, women in your life? And just let some of them come to mind. Anyone, relative, neighbor, school teacher. Sometimes it's a sibling. Who were the comforters, the supporters, the nurturers in your life? Clearly there may be more than 3. So you witnessed the birth not of Jesus but of you, and not the story of the 3 wise men but the wise men and women in your lives. Look at it. Just a beautiful view of it all. Maybe a different perspective than we're used to. The wise men and women throughout our lives. And then what gifts did they bring you? What was their gold, their frankincense, their myrrh? Their treasures of any kind, material or emotional. Their spiritual support, like the frankincense. The myrrh, such as their ability to sort of help you ground and realize there are some life challenges, but you can get through it. Coaches, trainers, friends. Hear and feel the words of gratitude, the feeling of gratitude for all of them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To all of them. Knowing that when you're saying and feeling thank you, see them wherever they are in the universe. Imagine them being lifted energetically by your gratitude. They saved a soul. That's big stuff. And then, have you yet been, and if not, imagine it happening today, spiritually born? And possibly more than once. Have you been spiritually born? I don't just mean the words, but when you actually felt a commitment to say goodbye to the old, the past, and bringing in a new life. It could be when you sat in this audience. It could be today, watching from afar. It could be a vision you had in a meditation. But hopefully something somewhat cathartic, clear that you were done with the old. You may not have done it 100% perfectly, but as long as it was a significant shift, call it what it is. And let's think of it as a baptism. And then, if it happened more than once, see them all. And also here today. as our ceremony, ritual of the month, honoring Epiphany, we call in your presence, Divine Mother, Holy Spirit of God. We empty ourselves of the past, emptying our cup to be refilled. You know how, you know in what way, and you know in what quantity. But we call upon your beautiful Spirit, Divine Mother, Holy Spirit of God, to pour upon us, descending as in the form of a dove once, but for us, whatever form it's to take. It's the presence of joy, the presence of freedom, the symbol of the dove. Joy and freedom, feelings of God pouring into us, blessing our hearts, anointing our hearts, giving us the grace of God, giving us the state of God's consciousness, helping us to be all that God is and all that God created us to be. And our hearts are open with gratitude, swelling with gratitude. Baptized, not in the desert of Jordan, but in Sedona and wherever we happen to be. Baptized in the waters of purification that only come from the oceans of God, the waters washing over us, the rivers of life washing over us, cleansing every center, every cell, every organ, every gland, every body, layer of bodies within my being, our being. Gifting us with the ability to perform miracles. Water into wine, smiles on people's faces, paying a little bill for someone here and there, helping someone when they grieve, every form of miracle, not just the material type. I am as God created me, and I will to be the Christ on earth. In me is the Messiah awaited for by the Jews, the Christ awaited for by the Christians, the next Buddha awaited for by the Buddhists, and so on. In me is that and more. In each of us, when I say me, I mean each of us, the presence of God, perfectly holy. I am part of God, and I am very holy. God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Thank you. Okay. I wasn't quite clear that that's where we were going, but that's where we went. So I hope you enjoyed the trip. Nice. We're going to do our closing song in just a moment. I want to share something briefly with you all about where we're at Unity of Sedona. And this will only take about 2 minutes, then our offering and our closing song. First, I want to thank, there was a wonderful couple that approached me a couple of weeks ago after service, and they said, and I'm paraphrasing, hopefully I get the words right of what they shared, but they said, we were living in the Northeast, and it was around the time of the last election. And they said, and we were devastated by this election. And after the election, we decided, sort of like a feeling of giving up. There was just a, wow, right? And then we're just going to go on a trip to kind of get away from it all. And they came to Sedona. And strangely, they sat here while I talked for the first and only time, I think, about politics. I only commented on it for a moment. Just kind of reassuring people about what happened and what's going on and the bigger meaning and all that. And these folks, from what I understand, they said that's it. They went home, sold their house, and they moved here. I thought you might have asked if I was planning to move first, but, to make sure I'm here. But they loved what they heard. They loved what they felt. Now, I think that's great, don't you? I want you all to remember, the more you live this kind of stuff, though, not just me, but each of us, the more each of us live this, the more people really dig that. But it also means you have another level of responsibility to hold. I'm not trying to put guilt and responsibility on you, but I'm saying, if we're going to be spiritual, if we're going to be spiritual leaders, if we're even going to talk about, I go to Unity of Sedona, it's amazing. People are watching you to see how you're different than the average person. So be great examples. Be great examples to your kids. Be great examples to whomever, because people are watching and observing. Try to be the sane one in the room when people are all upset. Try to be the one that handles illness differently. Try to be able to handle life stuff, earth things, news, broadcasts, and all. Try to be one that's a bit different. Because even if you don't live here and you live far away or you move far away, and you talk about your new age beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, people are watching you. If you're the only one in your family to wear mala beads, they're going to say, well, what's that? And they're going to want to see if you live up to what it means. It's not like you just, these are just accessories. You get these at Learner or whatever, May Company or whatever. I don't know what stores exist anymore, but, they're just accessories, last time I was at a mall, it was the 90s. So those are the stores I remember. One of the gifts of the wise men and one of the whole points to some of that story is, that the families that we're sometimes born into aren't going to be the ones to honor us. So we're often the black sheep. And that's one of the things you have to be prepared to live up to, is that you're not fitting the old system. So one of the reasons that Jesus went to the pagans first is he said, because I'm going to go to the people of Israel and they're not going to really accept me. That's a statement to you and I. The people of Israel are often our families who are wonderful in their ways, their traditions, whether it's family tradition, religious tradition. But Jesus already told you, they're not the ones that'll often accept you. And so he went to the pagans first. And there's a lot of connection to paganism even after. So just keep that in mind. You're the black sheep. If you are the black sheep, you're not the first. And it's okay. Do what you can to feed life into those systems that are entrenched, whether it's religious or family tradition. Do what you can to drop a smile in there and try to, bring some light there. But do not expect it to get what you're into. Just drop the pedals, man. Drop the pedals of love and move on. So I want to thank, folks like that have really felt the call. Whether they've moved here or whether they're just attending here, that feel the call, because we got some really cool things going on. So I want to close with these couple of thoughts. Do remember to teach only love, for that is what you are. Do your best to be an embodiment of love. And a lot of you were asking in the last couple of weeks, again and again, this comes up. It feels like you're talking directly to me. And I often smile and say, oh, that's nice. So let me explain briefly. 1, what I do is connect with God. 2, I bring as much of that into myself as possible. 3, I also connect with the people here, wherever I'm talking, because that's a perfect trinity for me. I don't only channel God, I don't only channel Michael, and I don't only talk to you. I believe all 3 are what we're supposed to be doing. Any good mom, any good dad, any good partner should be God, self, and others in this beautiful relationship. So that's why it feels like I'm talking directly to you. It is possible to talk to everybody in the room and only that one person all at the same time, because there's magic that is multidimensional in what we're experiencing. Why? Because I'm amazing. No. Because I know how to say of myself, I am nothing. I don't even have probably the equivalent today of a 6th grade education. This is not skills that I developed. Honestly, it's humility. And I don't mean to sound arrogant by calling myself humble. I can say that with a levity about it, because I know this didn't come from anything I came and studied or whatever. So I feel like I offer, what I offer, and some people dig it. They like the style of my sharing. I believe it's the truth of God. I dig that. So I don't just like to talk about stuff and teachers and quotes. And, whenever you see me having to recite something like a quote, I have to read it. I don't have much memory. When I teach, it just comes through. When I have to recite something, I usually have to read it like a quote, like the notes I'm sharing with you now. So, people might like the approach, but beneath it all, what I'm really saying is everyone get back to God. Teachers often talk about themselves, and I don't really have anything to offer. There's not a Michael thing that I'm introducing you to. It's really get back to God. I don't think people should settle for gurus. I think God needs to be your only one and only. But some people that think they need that, teachers are not gurus. There's a difference. A teacher knows how to remain somewhat objective and know their role. I'm teaching. All right. But there's something, if people are into that, let them go and do that. For me, I don't even want my teachings. There's a part of me that would like my teachings to not be remembered when I go because of how easily people twist things. But if people could forget my teachings and just get what they were trying to say, I would dig that. Because the word they're going to twist. If they can twist Jesus, they can twist mine. It's just the concept of getting back to God. So here at Unity, we will continue to teach all the things we teach, just starting this new year. This is our first Sunday of the year, so we're going to continue teaching many things. We're going to teach all kinds of traditions, but not just eclectically. We're also going to teach the all, meaning of God. So all the traditions of our chakras, our heart traditions, the mind religions and traditions, the root religion, we're going to embrace and continue to teach all that, and yet one better. The God stuff. And we're slightly altering our tagline, as you know. This is, Unity of Sedona still, but it's going to be Sedona's Center for Masters and Students on the Spiritual Path. We're going to continue asking people to be responsible here. We don't want a lot of intense preaching to each other. Really, just be loving, keep being loving to one another and people that come here and visit here. We are not traditional in any sense, not a traditional unity or anything else. And lastly, someone said to me, they were kind of being disruptive and rude to people. And I had to say, hey, listen, no, stop, lighten up, back off. And they said, well, wait. If this is a sanctuary, shouldn't we be allowed to do whatever we want? And I said, no. There are a couple hundred people here on a Sunday. The needs of everyone are greater than the ego needs of one, selfish needs of one. And that person probably will not come back anymore because they didn't like hearing that. Spirituality is not enabling the ego. Don't confuse the two. Spirituality can often be seen not as a cross or flowers or lotuses, but a boot, to kick the butts of people that are out of line. I just came up with that, so don't hold it against me. That wasn't in my note. Being able to say no for the sake of love, man. Do what's right and live righteously. Righteously means right consciously. Thanks for listening.